fueling for activity. And with activity, you kind of throw everything out the window and you say, okay, what is the best for activity? And the high fiber or lots of protein and fat is not necessarily the best thing when you're being active. So I'll show you some examples of this. Okay, so we're going to talk about fueling before, during, and after your activity. So before exercise, in general, you want to have really good nutrition, lots of variety, lots of fruits and vegetables, right? And then about 3 or 4 hours before your activity, you want to have a carbohydrate meal. So what would that look like? It could be something like a piece of fruit. It could be something like maybe a bagel. And at this point, like 3 or 4 hours beforehand, you can combine that protein and fat in because it's going to give you enough time to digest all of that, right? Maybe it is a sandwich, or maybe it's a pita wrap with some chicken and vegetables in there. Really something that's just really well balanced. As you get closer to your activity, you really want to start focusing more on carbohydrates and more on those quickly digestible carbohydrates. So for example, animal crackers, you know, these are a nice little snack before activity. These are whole grain, goldfish, maybe some other types of whole grain crackers, maybe some dried fruit, okay, or a piece of fresh fruit, right? Especially if you're going to be exercising or active if you haven't eaten for a while. So say you're a morning person and you like to get up and first thing in the morning you like to exercise. You've gone all night long fasting, right? So ideally you have a little bit of something in your system, a little bit of carbohydrates. And in the nutrition world, we talk about how fat burns in a flame of carbohydrate. You actually need a little bit of carbs on board to get that fat burning as efficiently as possible, okay? Same thing for kids after school. So say they've had lunch, maybe they're doing an after school activity, they haven't had that snack around 3 or 4 o'clock and they're going right into soccer. Ideally, you'd send them with a little something like maybe some trail mix or maybe a granola bar, something that they can snack on before they do that activity, okay? Now let's move into the activity itself. So while you're being active, you know, that first 60 minutes, you have enough stores, most of us on average, have enough stores of sugar in our muscle and our liver to get us through about 60 minutes of activity without needing to eat anything, okay? But then once we use up those glycogen stores, they're called, we really do need the fuel again. And this is where something like a sports drink would come in, right? So this has some carbohydrates in it, and it's in a ratio that we can easily and quickly digest and absorb. But you could also do something like a piece of fruit. You could do some dried fruit, like raisins or cranberries. The one caveat with fruit is you don't want to get too much of it because it has the natural fruit sugar fructose, and fructose takes just a little bit longer to absorb, so this can cause a little bit of a laxative effect if you're, you know, exercising really heavily. So not too much fruit, right? And of course through all of this you're hydrating. Some crackers might be a good thing if you're like doing a really long run, or if you're, say, you're doing like a back-to-back soccer practice. You know, a little bit of carbohydrate in between would be really great. And then for post, so fueling after your exercise, you really want to be thinking about replacing your electrolytes, because remember, what have you lost in your sweat? You've lost salt, right? So I've got some samples that we're going to try a little bit later. One of them is a little trail mix. This is actually soybeans roasted edamame that's salted as well, and then some raisins. So you've got a good combination of carbs and protein here, and then some sodium on the roasted edamame. Another great source of salt is dairy, actually. So dairy has natural salt. So we've got some little snacks here for you. Mozzarella cheese with bell peppers, and bell peppers are a great source of vitamin C. So remember we talked about earlier how vitamin C needs increase a little bit with activity because of that oxidative stress from the exercise. So vitamin C, some electrolytes, and then some carbs with your chips or crackers or bagel or whatever you like.